Welcome back to Visual Anthology. In this video training, we're covering the Overstock returns area or return invoices. We've already gone over the basic inventory information you might use in determining if an item should stay or go. We covered some of the basic reports you might use, and we also have already gone over the Overstock returns screen, such as creating a new one, adding items, associating invoices with your line items, and so forth. In this third and final chapter, I'm planning on going over the auto-generate utility. That's a utility in which you can get a list of suggested titles to maybe pull and send back to a vendor, or at the very least items that have just been around a long time and perhaps need to be considered for maybe a bargain bin situation. Now, the auto generation screen does have quite a few settings on it. I'm going to hit them pretty quickly, so I do recommend that you go out to the help system on the web and get familiar with that screen and what the different settings are and exactly what they mean and how they'll work. And that is found underneath the Using Anthology menu, Inventory Control menu, Overstock Returns. Let's go back to the Anthology screen here, and we'll go to Inventory Control and Generate Overstock Returns. As you can see, there's quite a few different settings on here. The first thing I have to select is, with all the titles that I'm going to pick up, what vendor should be on that Overstock return? Now in this case, you can see I've already got it set to create one Overstock return and put HarperCollins as being the person it's going to go back to. Now, if I was going to generate a bit more broader of a list of items, perhaps build me several smaller returns, I can choose all vendors, and it's going to ask me, okay, are you going to return this back to the publisher of record on that inventory item that we do pick, or are you going to want to return it back to the last vendor that you got that item from? In this case, I'm just going to say, let's just build one big order or one big return, and we're going to just put the HarperCollins name on it. Down here, I have to start choosing what books. So, as I'm having it go through and pick up items based on the filters I'm going to set here, I can have it look through any book by any vendor, or I can say a series of filters here. In the case of last vendor, it means look at that item and make sure that the last vendor I received it from is HarperCollins. Like that. I can say alternatively that not only do I want to find items whose last vendor was HarperCollins, but historically, anytime I've received it, look at those items who we received it from HarperCollins. Contrast that to the publisher field here, and that would be saying, out of all the items that I might pick up to return, make sure that HarperCollins is the publisher of record. Like so. Same idea for the distributor. That's like saying, build me a big order, but make sure that the distributor of record is HarperCollins or whoever I choose in this field. Because I want to at least make sure I get something to return, I'm going to say just look through all vendors in this case. And just put it on one big return memo for HarperCollins. I can split things out later if I want. Which takes us to the return window. The return window is that window of time that you can specify in your vendor record. What does the vendor usually allow you to return an item in? Now, in this case, in my vendor record, I'm saying that HarperCollins allows me at a bare minimum to return items that I received 20 days ago to a maximum of 100 days ago. As I have populated this in my master files vendor record, it comes through on this return window only screen in the same way. So because I had that 20 to 100 days set up in my master files vendor record, now that HarperCollins is going to be the person I'm going to return these items to, it's pulling that information. Now, for some reason, maybe I want to go back a little further, more than 100 days. Not sure if they'll let me do that, but I just want to get sort of a broader picture. So I'm choosing to go back to at least 200 days old. So you can see my invoice date range shows that various time frame. So let's say we want to go back at least 50 days to 200 days. So an item can be no older from August 2007 and no younger than January 2008. If I wanted to limit things even further, I can say not only it had to have been received in that range, it must have a vendor invoice attached to it. Now I have to do that during my receiving process to get that information in there. I can go back and add it after the fact, but I do have the ability to say here that not only does it have to hit a certain window, but it must also have that invoice as well. And in fact, most vendors are going to want that information before they'll even let you ship something back. So I can use this filter to narrow it down a little bit more, but again, because I'm not quite sure what I'm going to get in my list, I'm going to just use it, keep it really simple. Which takes us down to the next filter of what department or section or media do I want to limit my search through. Now I can say just find me anything in the mass market department, which I think is going to get me a pretty small list. So for right now, I'm just going to say, you know what, look through everything. Don't filter yet, but I certainly have that option to do so. Which takes us down to the settings down here, which are kind of the real critical ones. There are 3 different choices. The most popular is probably this last received before and not sold since these 2 date ranges, which I can change. I think January 1st, 2006 is probably far enough. If I don't go back far enough, I will get a bigger list, items that are more recent or more active, so I want to probably find the items that are really quite old. The other option is this on-hand stock exceeds so many months worth of sales. So let's say I had an item where I sold on average 3 copies a month, and I want to make sure that maybe I don't have more than 3 months worth of stock. So I want to make sure I don't have any more than, in this case, 9 copies. If I had 15 copies and I used these settings and I averaged 3 copies a month for the 3 months time frame, it's going to look at this and say, okay, 15 copies when the average for 3 months is 3 copies of a month, so 3 months is 9 copies. Get rid of the 6 extra copies by using this option. Lastly is this other option of on hand is more than the maximum. If your store uses those min-max numbers in the inventory, this allows you to go in and say, okay, find anything whose on hand is greater than the maximum and either return every single copy or just reduce this down to the maximum. I would say, however, that this last received before is probably the most used option and probably the easiest to work with at first. So let me just set mine back to January 1st, 2006. So I'm going to create one big order for HarperCollins, or one big return memo rather. I'm going to have it search through all the vendors. I'm not going to filter based on my departments, and I want to pick up anything that hasn't been sold or received since January 2006. Now, this is probably going to give me a decent sized return memo, but I can always split things out and move them to different return memos from the return memo screen. I'll say run, and yes, I want to generate. It's going to show me a status bar as it thinks, and then once it's done, it'll say process is complete. There we go. So that means I have a result. So let's go take a look at our Overstock return that it generated. So 262 copies. So here is a list of all the items that we are suggesting might need to go. This is where I, as the store manager here get to sit down and make those important decisions of, even though the system suggested I might have too much stock of these gift tags, I do want to keep them. I don't want to get rid of them. So right away, I'm going to just highlight or multi-select that section of items, and I'm going to remove them right from this return memo. So again, I can use these info panels down here to get a sense of how many sales the item's been on, what receiving memos the item has been on, what invoices that item was received with. So I can go through and start looking at all these different pieces of information to decide, do I really want to keep this item or really do I want to get rid of it? So in the case of, say, this hologram bookmark item, we're suggesting that one copy needs to go, but we're also seeing that we've got one on hand, none on order. We haven't sold any ever. We've never even really received it either. So maybe I do want to get rid of this item. So I want to leave it on this return memo. But in this case, a bookmark, that'll sell. So what? I don't want to return this item, so again, I'll delete that from the return memo. But you're going to go through, once you've generated your return memo, your list of suggestions. Now you're going to go through and start making those determinations of, am I really going to get rid of it? Do I need to keep it? Does it perhaps need to go to a different return memo? Does this perhaps really just need to go into some sort of bargain bin situation? And again, don't forget, like we covered in the second chapter, as you're going through and making those determinations of keep it or not, you want to make sure you are finding the invoice that that item came in on and associating that so that it's in the list item. And we'll just say that this one was an Overstock. So here's an item that it actually came in from Ingram, so it's not quite the best example for a HarperCollins return, but you get the general idea. I can move items to another Overstock return. Like I said, I can split these items out. So perhaps I want to find anything whose publisher is, say, Penguin. And I can mass highlight and say, move these to a different return. Let's just put it on number 725 here. So those items will now get moved over to another return, which I can stand and go through and fine-tune to see if I really want to keep those items or not. That's about it for doing the auto-generate utility. Again, these are just drafts that we auto-generate, so if you auto-generate something and it's not quite what you want, easy enough, just go into Actions and you can void this sort of unwanted Overstock return and just go in, change your settings, try it again. So hopefully those 3 chapters will have given you enough to go through your inventory. One last little detail is if you did not choose in your Overstock return to delete an inventory item using this delete checkbox here, you can still go back in to your inventory and maybe sort by the on hand, find anything that has 0 on hand that hasn't been received or sold in a while, and you can delete those items all at once. And don't forget too, you can also bring items back by doing show inactive records and find any item who had an inactive checkbox and go to Actions and say reactivate that record. So even though you've removed the on hand, we don't totally delete that inventory item because you're going to need some information on it later, like what sales did it do. But we still allow you to delete an item but reactivate it to bring it back should you need it. Well, hopefully that'll give you what you need on doing Overstock returns. If you have any questions, don't forget to go to the Anthology Customer Zone and log into that new message board and post any questions you might have there.